As we begin this new decade, the country is facing a dangerous weight problem. Consider this: in the late 1970s, 15% of American adults were obese. By the early 90s, that number had jumped to 23%, and most recently, 35%.
The evidence of an epidemic is everywhere. 2/3, 190 million Americans are overweight or obese.
If you had to grade the United States when it comes to obesity,
well, I'd give us an F.
A national report card no one is proud of. Obesity-related diseases are a nearly $150 billion medical burden every year.
We're going to end up as a nation of cardiac cripples.
Childhood obesity has tripled in the last 30 years. This could be the first generation since the Civil War to have a shorter life expectancy.
It was just like every day I went to school, I got picked on. I can't take you.
Or what have the kids been saying to you?
They'll call me names, just talk.
What do the bullies say to her? What do they call her?
Call her fat.
Linebacker. You know, just name the little girl. Little girl don't supposed to hear nothing like that. A 12-year-old girl. It make you worried, then it make you angry about the people that's saying things to her. You know, you're being a parent, you want to protect your child at all times, you know. And with them, you know, just like she shouldn't have to do that. See, people shouldn't judge people from the outside anyway.
My job was to train the 160,000 or so soldiers, or correction, civilians that would come into the Army every year and turn them into soldiers. What I found when I reported that assignment disturbed me. Several facts came to my attention. First of all, 75% or more, a little bit more actually, of the civilians who wanted to join the Army were not qualified to do so. 75% of the 17 to 24-year-olds that wanted to join the Army were not qualified, and the number one reason was because they were obese. Of the 25% that could join the Army, what we found on the first day of basic training was that about 60% of them could not pass the PT test that we gave on the first day. And that was 1 minute of push-ups, 1 minute of sit-ups, and a 1-mile run. Now that's not a difficult test, but we were finding the great majority of our new soldiers coming off the civilian environment could not pass that test. I couldn't understand what had happened. This was not what I had left studying physical education in 1986. As we did some analysis, I realized that a couple things had changed. First of all, number one, and the primary reason, was starting in the late 90s, the majority of our elementary and high schools stopped teaching PE. And in fact, only 5 states of the 50 in our country right now have mandatory requirements for physical education between K and 12th grade today. 5 out of 50. Now, you say, okay, well that's interesting, but what does the Army care about that? Well, we were getting the product of that, but in addition, the second and third order effects were young people that were joining our service could not run, dodge, jump, tumble, roll, the kinds of things you expect soldiers to do if they're in combat. The second thing we found, or that I found or realized, was that our diet had changed radically in the last 15 years. We were supersizing everything, Having been stationed overseas in Germany, that's not the case there, but they were supersized. If you wanted large fries, you could get extra large and extra, extra large. You couldn't just get a 16-ounce drink, you could get a 24, 42, 64-ounce soda. And that was having a deleterious effect. It was fascinating to me that we were also seeing, a scientist told me, that in the last 15 years, from the time I left West Point until today, Americans eat about 30% more calories a day than they had in 1983, and about 15 pounds more of sugar a year. I'm going to show you one area, and that's just levels of obesity. This was a chart that represents the number of states in the Union that were below 20% obesity rates on average from a child of 14 to 19 years old. This was in 1985. Watch what happens. As you can see, in 2009, it's significantly worse. The predictions for 2030 are these. You can see the number of states that have greater than 65% children obese. This is not overweight, this is obese. Now, the related issues, as I told you, the issue with our injury rates and how much we were paying to fix people is significant. We spend, estimated, the Department of Health and Education both determine that we spend on average today between $150 to $200 billion per year treating the results of childhood obesity. We're seeing an increase in diabetes. We estimate that we'll have a 40% cardiovascular disease rate by the year 2030. This is significant. This is a health cost, a healthcare issue, an economic issue, a readiness issue for me because I'm seeing my pool of recruits deplete based on this. I can't pull them in order to fix them. And it's just a competition issue. There's other studies that show what obesity and lack of activity do to young people. So I believe this is certainly a national security concern.
So there are some things that we've learned about preventing obesity in children, and the wonderful thing is they're relatively simple. Once you get beyond these, things get a little bit harder. But simple things you can do. Number one, have your child eat breakfast. You would think eating more is not the way to prevent obesity. I'm not talking about having a huge breakfast, but if your child or teenager regularly skips breakfast, it seems that they eat even more later in the day than what they missed in the morning. Whereas children who eat a good, balanced breakfast tend to eat less later on in the day than if they'd skipped breakfast. So hey, start with breakfast. While we're at the meal table, make your own meals and eat dinner together as a family. This seems so simple. I know in today's world it can be very difficult to get everybody around the dinner table at the same time. But we know that simply having a family meal keeps kids from overeating and becoming obese. Likewise, it's very hard to cook something at home that has as much fat and salt as what you're going to buy out or buy as a prepared meal. So look up some good recipes, try something new, something fresh, or something old. Maybe it's an old family recipe that you love. But if you made it, you're likely to be better off in terms of preventing obesity than if you go out and get even something that's supposed to be healthy at a restaurant. Next, eliminate sugared beverages. Nobody needs a single drop of juice, especially not children. Even 100% real fruit juice is still largely sugar water. Likewise, here in the South, we enjoy sweet tea. Nobody needs sweet tea, lemonade, soda, even sports beverages like Gatorade or Powerade, for example, often contain much more sugar than children need. There is a place for sports beverages in children who are dedicated athletes and exercising for more than an hour a day, but unless you really need a rehydration beverage like that, it's easy to overuse them. Remember, they have a lot of calories. Eliminating calories in beverages is one of the simplest ways to get rid of excess calories in the diet. Next, avoid fast food. It is really hard to get more calories than you can in a fast food meal. Next, turn off the television. That seems so simple, but we know that kids who watch more TV eat more, even compared to kids who play more video games or watch more computer. For some reason, sitting in front of the TV encourages children to eat, not only to eat, but to eat things that are especially high in fat, simple sugars, and salts, things like snack foods. So, the easy stuff. Breakfast, turn off the TV, have dinner together as a family, cook at home rather than eating out, and stamp out sugared beverages. Talking about preventing obesity in children, I'm Dr. David Hill.
Imagine carrying a 10-pound bag everywhere you go. Just 10 pounds adds more than 30 pounds of force to your knees. So those achy knees might mean you need better habits. By realizing you're overweight, and by taking control now, you may lower the risk of developing serious health problems like heart disease, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, gallstones, and some cancers. Losing just 5% of your body weight may also decrease the stress you're putting on your body. That means doing more of the things you enjoy without the aches and pains. It's the little things that make up the weight gain. And it's the little things that will help take it back off. Wouldn't you like to drop the weight and stop picking up more? Obesity happens 1 pound at a time. So does preventing it.